some people out there may be curious as to why I love collecting female robot action figures so much. And no, the answer is not just that I have some weird fetish for them. No, the fact goes back to my childhood. The stereotype is generally that boys only collect action figures of male characters, and that a toy of a female character has to be a toy for girls. As you recall back in my April O'Neil review, I was actually discouraged from getting that toy as a 4-year-old boy despite how much I wanted it. So now that I'm an adult and nobody can tell me what I purchased besides me and the balance in my bank account, I say screw it, and I buy all the lady action figures that I want. So that is why I get girl figures. As for why I collect robots, well, robots. I've loved collecting robot toys ever since I was a little boy. This dingbot actually goes back to when I was less than 5 years old. Robots are a staple of science fiction. And not even really science fiction, but really any general futurist or hope for the future or in technological advancement is basically manifested in the general direction of the humanoid robot character. It pervades basically every kind of medium, cartoons, TV shows, movies, all of them. Robots are just cool. I mean, who doesn't love robots? From the biggest, most complex action figures to the tiniest little gumball machine charms like this one. Robots are just cool. So of course, any toy that combines these two things, being a female character and being a robot, is going to be the very top of my want list. Be they from Transformers or some obscure little Japanese show. I mean, they're just something that really appeals to me, so I want them. So with all this being said, it's the perfect little segue for the subject of today's review. So with all of that said, here is my latest toy acquisition, Rosie the Robot Maid. Now, I know some of my viewers are quite young. And if you're under the age of, say, 20 or so, you might not remember the TV show called The Jetsons, unless you're a regular watcher of the Boomerang network. I know my cable package doesn't include Boomerang, but, you know, I know some other people have it. So, let's take a look at Rosie. So, in a nutshell, The Jetsons was a show about your basic nuclear family, a husband, wife, couple kids, a dog, that takes place in the 1960s vision of what the year 2004 was going to be like. You know, flying cars, jobs where you push a button and everything gets done, living in buildings that are thousands of feet above the clouds, you know, that kind of stuff. The show is extremely silly and dated, but, some things just kind of hold up over time. I know personally one of my favorite parts was when the Jetsons got a sassy robot maid, Rosie the Robot. Now, in the show's continuity, Rosie is actually an older model. For example, she still uses wheels. These are functioning little caster wheels, and they do roll, although they are so tiny and spaced so closely together that her foot, she doesn't have much of a footprint, so it's actually a challenge to get her to stand, because the slightest little knock can send her falling over. Although if you're careful enough, she will display just fine. Rosie seems to be made out of that jazzwares plastic that a lot of toy snobs tend to hate, but
since this is a toy for, I guess if you were to give this to a kid, this bend but doesn't break kind of plastic is pretty good for things like the antennas, I suppose. Her articulation is, well, she has pretty much everything you'd expect. She has a head swivel, just like Rosie. Should have, that is. She has universal shoulder joints. They go forward and they go outwards, and they can go backwards. You don't get 360 out of them because her collar comes in the way, but they go all the way in either direction. Or you can just stick it straight out and spin it. Although why you would do that, I have no idea. She has this weird thing that most of the Hanna-Barbera Jazzwares figures have, where she has an elbow that goes inward instead of going forward. And in addition to that, you only get maybe 30 or 40 degrees of bend out of it. I don't know, like, why would they... I mean, I guess it can kinda help a little bit, but it's just weird to have an elbow that goes in this direction. It should totally go the other way. I don't know, maybe the arm seems almost completely tubular. Maybe you could just lop it off and then glue it back on after a 90-degree rotation. But I don't know, I'm not going to mess with that. She also has a wrist joint. Yay. And she has a waist joint. See? Waist. Which is kind of funny, considering just how much junk in the trunk she has. Although, I'm actually surprised how symmetrical that can look. But, see? Now you got no apron mode. Of course, since that puts her wheel back here, her center of gravity is here, her only point of contact is here, so... yeah. Here. But still, she's Rosie. She's like one of the oldest girl robots I can think of that wasn't, evil. I think maybe the first female robot would probably be the robot from Metropolis, but she tried to destroy the world and all that stuff. So Rosie, she's a very cute little robot. I mean, look at that. She totally has the old Maid thing going on. And if you look in her right hand, there's a little hole there. That is for her one and only accessory, a feather duster. So you just take the feather duster and you can stick it right into that hole. And the feather duster is made out of a really soft plastic, and it gets really narrow at one point, so it's actually very easy to bend a thing. But yeah, now you have Rosie ready to do some dusting. And that looks nice. And the way she holds it, it looks like something that grew out of her hand. Like, she has multi-purpose tools stored in her arm, and they pop out and like things. That's nice. Yeah, Rosie is a very nice figure. Let's get a close-up of her face, because that's something I always liked about Rosie's face. It's just a cylinder with a little maid hat, and she has the most basic face I can think of. Her eyes look like a pair of dials, where the points of the dials are her eyelashes, and her mouth is a simple slot. See? You can see it's sculpted there, and this slot moves. She has an upper and lower lip, and that's how she talks. And it's such a basic design that can be so expressive, because in the cartoon, Rosie was a very emotional character. She cried, she got angry, she expressed joy. She was really a character that I could feel. She was my favorite part of the Jetsons cartoon. I mean, there wasn't really much else to it. She's a very simple toy. She's not a very big toy. She's about 3 inches tall. She commands a relatively low price point of only about $8, which isn't bad. She's cheaper than a typical Sonic figure, and she has quite a lot more mass. I don't think there's anything hollow on her. I think she's solid plastic the whole way through, which is probably why it's so hard to balance her on that little foot. There. So yeah, that is Rosie the Robot Maid. And this is Toy Customizer, Wakeangel2K1, signing out.